Today on the show, you and I discuss your mindset and what you believe is possible and why that really is absolutely everything.
Can't you see? Everyone! They're here already! You're next!
Let's go!
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born!
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
I'd like to quote my childhood best friend, and still one of my best friends to this day, Greg. A black man who grew up in England with experience of living in America as well, who said to me, racism isn't as bad in England. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have it here. But racism isn't as bad in England because white people are too busy hating each other to hate us. That's what he said. And it was funny, but the more I thought about it, over the years, the more it's kind of made sense. Here's the thing. There was the idea of class warfare in England for years, and that still exists. There's still a holdover of it. In England, the social structure, the economic structure, the educational structure was set up in such a way where if you weren't kind of sort of upper crusty, if you hadn't come from something that was vaguely bordering on nobility, if you weren't something in society, doors were slammed in your face. You were brought up to believe that opportunity was not for you. Education was not for you. The good jobs were not for you. There is this very real, very palpable, very tangible idea of class warfare in England. And this was a social construct in place up until pretty recently. It was a big part of what made the Sex Pistols so special. What made them speak to the disenfranchised masses in England. They were the voice of a people who went, this is garbage. We're not given a chance. This is crap. The rich get richer and the poor don't have the opportunity to do anything about it. There's no way up. There's class warfare. If you're not from that part of society, you're never getting into that part of society. And that's a problem because that part of society holds literally all of the money and power. That was the sense in England. That was the palpable sense in England. And that's a very big difference between England and America. Since the inception of the country, of the United States of America, people have been coming there from all over the world to escape that. The idea that you couldn't get out of your station in life. In America, there's this idea that life is a bit more of a meritocracy. Anybody can rise from the bottom to the top in America. This is not a societal structure based on kings, queens, and nobility. This is a structure based on what have you done? What can you do? What are you willing to do? What are you capable of doing? And to you and I, people that have grown up familiar with this aspect of America, that seems like a given. That seems like something that we don't really give a whole lot of thought to. But still, in other parts of the world, the idea that you could come from nothing and rule everything is a distinctly foreign concept, and it's one that's uniquely American. And I wanted to talk to you about it because it really is an indicator that your mindset is absolutely everything. Now, why did we talk about racism earlier on in the show? Well, because my friend Greg was pretty right. There isn't a racial divide in England so much as there exists a holdover of the societal divide there. Now, in America, people are talking an awful lot about race. People talk an awful lot about institutionalized racism. The fact that people that are not white don't have the same opportunities as people who are in America. In England, they would say people that aren't from a certain segment of society don't have the same opportunities. The mindsets of the haves and the have-nots in America and England are very similar. But in one country, a lot of people see it as a division of race. In another country, a lot of people see it as a division of family bloodlines. In both situations, certain segments of society feel X'd out of jobs, opportunities, things of that nature, before they've even had a chance to take a swing at those opportunities, go to the interviews for those jobs. Am I making sense here? Do you see the similarities emerging? What we are seeing, and by the way, both of these things are horrible and we should have evolved past them a long time ago. In England, the idea that because you weren't born of an upper crusty bloodline shouldn't be allowed to hold people back. But let's be real here, it does. In America, the fact that you are not white shouldn't hold people back. But let's be real here, it does. Now, the common thread that runs between these two situations is not a color of skin. The common thread that runs between these two situations is not whether or not you're related to some form of nobility. We don't have nobility in America. The thing that I'm getting at, the thing that's so mind-numbingly important, the thing that determines your future, is your mindset. Mindset, conditioning, is incredibly powerful stuff. Your mind will control your future. Your mind will dictate where you can and cannot go. Your mind, how you feel about yourself and how you feel about the world around you and how you feel about your relationship to this world, that is what is going to dictate whether you win or lose at the game of life. Stay with me on this one. It's important.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So in America, it's the color of your skin that people say can hold you back. In England, like you and I were saying earlier, it's not the color of your skin, it's the circumstances into which you were born. In America, people perceive race warfare. In England, they call it class warfare. In both situations, there is a divide. There is a divide of opportunity. There is a divide of financial stability and security. There is a divide in education. But the reason I bring this up is not to say anything other than it is all about your state of mind. If you talk to psychologists, if you talk to head shrinkers, if you talk to people that treat people's state of mind, a lot of them will tell you everybody wants to change the world they're in. Everybody wants their circumstances to be different. Everybody wants their problems to be alleviated, to go away. Everybody's looking for some sort of solution. But so much of that solution, so much about changing your circumstances is how you see the world. Now, there's this idea that circumstances are a choice. There's this idea that poverty, lack of opportunity, all of these things are a choice. And what we're getting at here with the similarities between a second tier of people in England and America really is that mindset. Now, you can absolutely argue, hey, if you live in a system where you're not going to be given opportunities and education and the chance to go to college and the chance to succeed because you were born into a working class family the way a lot of people feel in England, well, you'd be right. But what's the key there? The acceptance of that. In America, if someone says, you know what? Can't do anything about it. I won't have the same opportunities because I'm black, or because I'm transgendered, or because I'm not white, or because I'm gay, or because of any of these things that are treated as less than. In one sense, yeah. There are people that will prejudge you because of all this stuff that you have no control over. But at the same time, there's so many examples of people that have broken those cycles and gotten out of it and made something of themselves, even when society would have told them that they didn't have that opportunity because of the color of their skin, because of something horrible and prejudicial like that. So what's the difference? What's the difference between a person who comes from disadvantaged circumstances, no matter what those disadvantaged circumstances are, and lets it dictate their life, and a person who comes from disadvantaged circumstances and says, F it, I don't care. I want to do this with my life, and I'm going to do this with my life. What is the difference? It really comes down to your mindset. It really comes down to this idea of what is or is not possible. Give you a perfect example. Travel. In America, there are so many people that I've met that have never left the country. Why? Because it's an intrinsically difficult thing to leave the country. There are large bodies of water that divide us from other parts of the world. And America in and of itself is freaking humongous. The idea of traveling outside the country is really difficult for a lot of Americans. Just because we've grown up thinking, oh man, that's super far away. That's an expensive plane ticket. There's all these time changes. There's all these different situations to overcome. I mean, gosh, I'd have to take 2 weeks off of work to adjust to the time in whatever country I'm going to. And, well, who has the money to do that? And it's so far away. Just the mental idea of something being very far away is prohibitive, right? The idea of something being far away makes it seem intangible and impossible. In England, in Europe, in places of that nature, there's a bit more of a sense of possibility when it comes to international travel. Even if you do live on the other side of a body of water in England or France, you can jump on a train and it's super easy to get there. And as a consequence, I know from my time growing up in England, many more world travelers that hit the road internationally and do it frequently. And not just to places that are close. Places that are on the other side of the freaking globe. But they just do it because they've grown up doing it. They've grown up crossing international borders. They've taken a train to France, and then they've backpacked to Spain, and then taken a bus to Belgium and Holland. The point I'm getting at is mindset is everything. Do you see what I'm talking about? In America, I know so many people that have never left America. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not pointing a finger or saying somebody is less than for not having traveled internationally. If you have never traveled internationally, hear me on this one. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that if you've grown up thinking it's nothing to have a passport and cross international borders because that's sort of what you do because it's a very easy thing to do, well, then the idea of international travel isn't this insurmountable thing. It's something that everybody kind of does. You grow up with other people that do it. You do it yourself. It's no big deal. No BFD. But in places where you have to travel thousands of miles to get out of the country, it is a big deal. It's time consuming. It takes all these things. So you don't get into the habit. You don't have the mindset. You don't have the mindset of being an international traveler. And if you never make it up to Canada or you never go down to Mexico, well then, you're kind of stuck in the mindset of someone who doesn't do that sort of thing. Meanwhile, in Europe, where crossing a border can be like crossing a street, people grow up traveling all over the world. If you decide to stay in one place your entire life, there's really nothing wrong with that. I'm just making the point that when you think something's possible, it is. When something seems large and unwieldy, like things that other people do or you will never do, when something seems like the pursuit of somebody else, then it becomes that. Literally anyone can get a passport and jump on a plane. The people that do this sort of thing in other parts of the world, where international travel is more common, have to pay the same amount for that plane ticket. They have to jump through the same hoops to do it, but they're used to doing it. They're in a society of people that do it. It's that mental conditioning that decides if you will or will not do something. Now, you can talk about institutionalized racism. You can talk about class warfare. You can talk about all of these things. I'm not saying they're not real. I'm not saying they don't exist. But I'm saying that each and every one of us has the power to break any single chain that we want to break. Any sort of deeply held belief that we have about what we can or cannot do becomes true. But conversely, when we believe we can do it, when we see the world as a world of possibility, when we see the world as something that is a wide open road spread out in front of us, down which we are free to travel, then that becomes true as well. Am I making sense here? It's the power of your mind and the ability to have it open that is going to let you go the places you want to go in this life.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So where you go in life, where you end up, how your life plays out, how the lives of your children play out. It is all to do with a state of mind. You can argue about opportunity, you can argue about education, you can argue about all these things. But it's all to do with a state of mind. It's all to do with a sense of possibility. Anything is possible for anyone. I mean, barring certain obvious restrictions. If your eardrums explode when you get below 2 feet, 3 feet of water, you're probably not going to be a police diver. But, barring obvious limitations like that, anything is possible. You can do anything that you want with your life. But it's that sense of possibility, or lack thereof, that holds people back. Now look, a lot of the time people lack a sense of possibility. And understandably so. Because they were born into a certain way of life. They were born into a certain color of skin that is unfairly judged by other people. But it's all conditioning. And it's all something that you can take a hold of. Like I said, people that I knew growing up in Europe thought international travel was like breathing because they grew up doing it, because it was really easy to cross borders. And once you do it, you feel like you could do it again. I'll give you another perfect example. Cities like New York City, where, and I know you're going to say New York City isn't really a fair comparison to the rest of the world because it's one of the social, economic, and educational hubs of the known universe. And that is true. But let's not get so high-minded with this. Let's talk about the idea of getting out and about. There is a better chance that an individual will break a cycle of poverty in a city like New York than there is a city like Houston, Texas. And I will tell you why. They've done studies on this. And people are going to say, oh, it's because of the way the education system is divided up in towns like that. Oh, it's because of it being less of a melting pot. So if you're of a certain color of skin, opportunities are harder to come by in a place like Houston. Here's the thing. Those might all be valid points. But it has to do with public transportation. What are we talking about? Not just the ability to go places and do stuff. When I arrived in Houston, Texas from New York City, I didn't have a car because I didn't need one in New York. And I thought I was going to go somewhere and I would just take the bus. And people were like, oh, you can't take the bus. I was like, why not? They're like, it's not reliable. It's not something you can count on. You have to walk really far to the bus stop. You can't. People don't take the bus the same way they do in New York. In New York, you're walking down the street, you hop on a bus, you get off 20 blocks later, there you are. Buses, trains, subways, very commonplace. And guess what that gives you? It gives you a different idea of possibility. If you grow up in poverty in a place like Houston, and this is not to say there aren't great opportunities for all sorts of people in Houston, but there's something very important that has to do with mindset in towns like that, where there is not a public transportation system that is as easily accessible as a subway in New York City or London, or the buses in New York City or London. You will grow up seeing a much smaller chunk of the world if you're in a large spread out place with no transportation system. And when you do that, your sense of the world is smaller. Your sense of possibility is smaller. And it's been proven over and over and over again that the ability to break out of a cycle of poverty is massively impacted by whether or not there's a public transportation system in your town. Okay, you can say that if you have a public transportation system, you're going to be able to get to school, you're going to be able to get to college, you're going to be able to get to class, you're going to be able to better your circumstances because of the ability that gives you. And that's true. But what it really comes down to, they've found, is mindset. Just the ability to hop on a subway train, pay $1.50 or whatever it is for a subway token, go miles and miles and miles to a different place, to a different part of the world, where you can see a different part of the world, where you can see people differently than you, where you can break out of your mindset, your home, your conditioning, all the things that go with it, is very different from someone who has a major task in front of them when they want to leave a 5 square mile radius. It's conditioning. And it really is amazing. It really is amazing, the power of your mind. Anybody can do anything that they want to. Anybody can do anything that they believe they can do. And conversely, if you don't believe you can do it, you can't. It's part of what's so important about education. And education is more than just going to school, getting good grades, so you can get a scholarship to go to college, so you can get a good job. And education is a sense of possibility. I have to say, I lucked out. I really, really lucked out. Why? Was it because I had a loving family? Was it because I grew up in a sort of vaguely upper middle class kind of way, where it was the norm that people went to college and then went on to get jobs that paid bills? Actually, it had nothing to do with that. Those were very fortunate circumstances, and I recognize that all the time. But I think I really lucked out when I stumbled into this band and we got a record deal. I mean, it started off a chain of events in my life that led to me doing all the things I've been lucky enough to do. But when I think back on it, I think I really lucked out because, well, I went and did something utterly ridiculous. I bailed on education. I'd never sung in a band before, but I decided I would give it a go because I was a wide-eyed, impetuous youth, and I thought it would be kind of a neat thing to try. And a weird thing happened. The planets aligned. I wound up in this band. We played 2 shows. We got a record deal. And that record deal took me around the world, gave me a profession. And when that was over, I'd experienced radio. Gave me another profession. But I never would have believed any of it was possible if I hadn't had one fluky bit of good luck in my young adulthood. Stumbling into a band that wound up getting a record deal was more than just the opportunity of being able to be in a band and travel. It made me go, oh, sure, why not? This is possible. My mom told me it wasn't possible. My mom was like, no, you've grown up studying drums and piano and things of that nature. You're going to go to college and you're going to get an education. You're going to learn how to become a music teacher or something of that nature. You've never sung a note in your life. You can't just join this band and scream and yell and think something's going to happen with that. It won't happen with that. But I was like, look, Mom, it did. And my mom's a professional musician. I remember when I told her how much I got for my first record deal, and she was like, I don't get it. That's more money than I've made in my life as a musician. I was like, sorry. And I'm not saying that to be egotistical. I'm saying that to say it gave me a sense of possibility. And when that was over and done with, I decided I wanted to be on the radio. So many people that knew better, so many people that knew the radio industry said, they're never going to give you a shot. Not in this town, not in Houston, Texas, not in market number 6, the 6th largest country in the 6th largest city in America, rather. They don't just give that to rank amateurs. You're going to have to go somewhere smaller and work your way up. I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to give it a go. And it worked out. Why? Not because I didn't take no for an answer and I just knocked on doors. I didn't believe the no that I was told. And it became true. Same can be said for literally everyone on this earth. What you believe is possible is. What you believe isn't is not.
These streets most every day. You waiting to get washed away. Radio. Real Radio. 104.1.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD again. Nobody rock nobody better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD again. Nobody rock nobody better than me.
So you and I have been talking an awful lot about mindset today and how it dictates what is or is not possible. And I know we've kind of beat it to death, but it's something I really wanted to impress upon you. Why? Well, I'm in my studio overlooking the Las Vegas Strip right now. Never would have imagined being here. Never would have pictured being here. Weird set of circumstances led me here. I'm here because, well, I got a new job a little while ago. Along with like the 20 or so other radio stations that I'm now on in Las Vegas. Do mornings on a new station called 93.1 The Mountain. I'm really stoked about it. I'm having an awesome time. It's a great city. It's a great town. And I've always loved Vegas. I always thought it was cool. I thought it'd be great to spend more time here. It'd be great to work here. Just because it's so unusual and outside the box and so different from anything that I ever experienced growing up. Trust me on this one. There is absolutely nothing like Las Vegas in England. And when I first got here, I was like, I love this place. I love this place because it's nothing like anything I have ever experienced. And I've been hanging out here for the last couple of weeks. I'll wind up going back and forth between here and Houston, where I work on 94.5 The Buzz and KPRC, and a couple of other cities where I'm on the radio. But I had a surreal moment. I had a surreal moment when I woke up at 4 a.m, because I'm a morning guy now. Whoa. What a distinct change that is for me. As I woke up at 4 a.m. and looked out my hotel room window, overlooking the Las Vegas Strip, and went, wow. I'm here. This is really strange, but it's awesome. And I'm enjoying every second of it. And I'm enjoying every second of it because I didn't know anything about this growing up, and I never would have thought it was possible if you told me. But I learned something really early on when my band got that record deal. When it took me around the world. I went, oh my gosh, this is absolutely nothing like what I was brought up to believe I should do or could do. I was brought up to believe you go to school, you make good grades. You make those good grades so you can go to college. You go to college so you can get a degree. You get a degree so you can get a job. That is how you make it in this world. That was the mindset that my family had. And you know what? It's a good mindset. It's a healthy mindset. It's a mindset full of possibility. It's a mindset I was fortunate enough to be brought up with. There's so many people that think, that's not for me. Getting an education, that's not for people. This is not what the people I've grown up with have done. I've got no point of reference to this. This is foreign. This is weird. This doesn't happen for people like me that are born into circumstances like me. That in and of itself is a privileged mindset that I was lucky to have. Bestowed upon me by parents that wanted nothing but the best for me. And maybe that would have been okay. But here I am having this surreal moment going, I'm living back and forth between Las Vegas. And before I was living in Las Vegas, I was living back and forth between Texas and San Diego, California. A town that I encountered for the first time when I was in a band that was on tour, and I wound up there going, I would love to live here. This is crazy. Look at this. There's kids leaving a school with surfboards under their arm and going to surf. This is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And that was just the thing that made it so appealing. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before. Unlike anything that I knew was possible. And that made me interested in it. So I guess that's it. That's really it. I had this surreal moment staring out of my hotel room window, staring out of my studio window, looking at this strange set of circumstances I've landed in the desert, loving every second of it, and realizing that it's possible because I believed it was. People around me told me I would never be in a band that did anything because, well, that's not what I'd spent my life preparing to do. I was fine. That was a measure of reality. But that was also people that had been conditioned to believe things like that weren't possible. When I decided I wanted to be on the radio after my band was done, that was something a lot of people told me I'd never be able to do. Certainly not in a city the size of Houston. They're like, you don't start in Houston. Houston's the 6th largest city in America. Nobody starts here. I was like, let me just try. And I'm not saying it didn't take hard work. I'm not saying it didn't take a lot of banging my head against the wall and failing and picking myself up back up and trying again and failing again. But it happened. I'm not saying everything that I've done with my life is so freaking great or impressive. That's not the point I'm trying to make. I've enjoyed it, and it's been an awesome run, and it will continue to be an awesome run. Why? Because of a sense of possibility. Because of a willingness to ignore people around me who told me that's not a thing. You won't be able to do that. That's not realistic. Let me just try. Oh, look, I succeeded. I knew a lot of people that had dabbled in radio that told me, okay, yeah, no, it's never going to happen for you. You got to go to some small town. Don't even bother applying there. Well, did you ever try applying there? No, come on. No, absolutely not. Well, I applied there and I got the job, and it set my life off on a certain path. Why? Because I believed in a sense of anything being possible, and it is. To the point where this sense of possibility that I really got very fortunate to have when some planets aligned and something that was incredibly improbable happened for me happened. And I say all of this not to impress you, not to be show-offy, but just to share with you that today, and for the last week, as I sit here in this incredibly unusual set of circumstances, it really struck me how much we are prisoners of our own mind and how much our own mind can set us free. If there's something you're trying to do with your life, if there's something you're trying to be, something you're trying to become, if there's something you're trying to earn, if there's somewhere you're trying to get, I want you to hear me on this one. As I sit here, talking to you, looking out my window at the Las Vegas Strip, wondering to myself, how did I get here? I'm reminded. I got here because, well, I believed it was possible. You can do literally anything that you want with your life. As long as you don't listen to yourself or anybody else when they say no.